What's poppin', y'all? It's Cardi and Rob back here with another lovely episode of the Play No Games podcast.
Say Ford and Rob, who do we have here with us today?
Man, you never know who comes to the Play No Games studio, and we got I say legend.
I'll say a local legend for real,
but it's more than a legend. It's a staple.
Mm-hmm.
It's someone who's very critical and important to Portland. And we have Mr. Tony Hopson on the podcast today.
At the senior today.
Senior.
Yeah.
We were just talking about respect.
Yep. Yeah.
See,
we'll take that. Not a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Welcome to the show today.
All right. Good to be here, fellas.
Appreciate you coming on the platform for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes. We know, what do you call it? You've done so much, and Play No Games is really about capturing stories, and you're definitely a story that we would love to know more about.
Yeah, but before we get into that, I know we usually do this thing on this show. Do you want to run him through it real quick?
I think I will. So
okay.
On this show, we do this segment called "What Do You Play No Games About?"
Mm-hmm.
It could be positive, negative, or something that you just want the people to know. So, like for example, I could be playing no games about Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns right now. They may not make the playoffs, and that's what I'm playing no games about.
And like for myself today, what I play no games about this week. Yesterday, I got to speak at the budget listening session for District 3 for the city of Portland. I got to provide testimony to both the city council and as well as Mayor Wilson. And I'm kind of disappointed that there are some proposed budget cuts to potentially close down Peninsula Park Community Center as well as Montevilla Community Center, St. John's Community Center. Like those spaces, they aren't just places for kids to play around. They're integral parts of the community. Like they provide after school programming, preschool programming, wraparound services. Like we need those. And if the city's going to talk about the safety net, they're going to talk about protecting folks within this city. It needs to start at that level. Otherwise, you're just talking and not walking. So that's what I Play No Games about.
Wow. Yeah, when I got that news that those places were, closing down, that kind of hit my childhood. And then also, I want to say thank you, man. Like going there. I don't know if you were able to to share some of your voice, but just getting the information and showing up, that's pretty admirable of you. I know I'd be messing with you a lot, but
yeah,
you're doing good work.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I didn't get to go physically join virtually, but I was able to provide testimony as well as written testimony prior to the event. I will say this, I was kind of disappointed that there weren't more Black community members in the space, whether that be virtually or in person. I know that type of work isn't necessarily, sexy or fun for people, but it's stuff that impacts us day in and day out. Now, does the city need to do a better job in terms of spreading out awareness and messaging around that type of stuff? Yes, but I feel as though folks, especially folks our age, need to be more proactive in getting involved in the community. So that's my little piece on that.
What I really play no games about is professionalism. What do you call it? Because sometimes I'm on YouTube, and one of the things I watch on YouTube is The Breakfast Club, and there's this big thing on The Breakfast Club about who's the host and all this other stuff. And I literally live got to see one person handle something professionally versus unprofessionally, and I feel like sometimes the professional version will always win. And when you professionally handle stuff, even though it takes a lot of emotional labor, you come out shining at the end.
Sometimes restraint.
Yeah. So professionalism.
Yeah.
So you guys have shared some really good stuff, some really critical stuff. But if I was to not play any games, it would seriously be about this moment in time, where we're at and the issues and challenges that all of us are faced with. And you talked about you were surprised that not that many Black folks showed up to speak their mind, but that's not unusual in this town. And you got to show up, if you want to make change. And oftentimes we talk about it, but we don't actually do it. And there's enough of us in this town that if we show up in certain places, we can make change. We can voice our opinions about any number of things. So I would just recommend that folks don't sit on the sidelines, especially now. Some of the things that our government has been able to get away with is because we're on the sidelines. I think about, I talk to folks about this, when stuff went down with George Floyd, so many people were asking the question, is this a moment or is this a movement? And all I could come up with for folks, because I was feeling like folks weren't going to stand the test of time. So I said, this is a moment, it's a movement, but only for a moment. And that's what it turned out to be. And if you think about all of the folks that showed up during that time, if they showed up and voted, perhaps you would have had a different outcome. But if they were still showing up right now, DEI would probably still be alive and well,
that part,
instead of putting on the shelf, because folks are mad about it, but enough people aren't protesting about it in the same way that they did then. So that's what time it is.
I may have misspoke as well earlier. Surprise wasn't the correct word. Disappointed because you know me well enough to know some of the stuff I've been involved with, like in my career, both professionally and outside of my day job. Having sat on a couple of different city committees, along with just being involved with some different philanthropic efforts, it does get kind of sad, I guess you could say, to Mr. Hopson's point that, we vocalize, always want to create change, but change starts by action.
So you gonna stop shopping at Target there, pal?
Yeah.
Okay.
But on top of that, I'm going to try to find ways to circulate my dollar within my own community, or try to build infrastructure within my own community. Just posting some on Instagram saying, hey, I didn't shop at Target today, isn't moving the needle in terms of the GDP.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for me, the other thing that I would play no games about is I'm right now in transition. So trying to actually retire, so this is my first year. So I'm in a full year of transition. So really trying to figure that out, trying to decide all of the things that I want to do and not have to do, but do by choice. But still, yet there's a lot of work to be done at SEI. There's a lot of work to be done in our community. So trying to decide just how much of me I want to keep, as part of the front lines, and how much of, grandkids, family, traveling do I want to add, to the pot. So still mixing that pot up. So all the pieces aren't there yet, but looking forward to figuring that out.
Yeah, I know the work never stops, but I will always encourage you, make sure Mr. Hopson's good first and foremost, because, life is fleeting for all of us. So just with all the years of service that you've given to this community, whether it be your family, if you just got some personal endeavors that you want to dive into, or heck, if you want to take a trip to Monaco, you don't owe nobody nothing in the city no more. So
absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah. But I know we're talking about retirement briefly, but I want to actually take it back to the beginning. For a lot of us, especially like people around my age that, either know you intimately or, just distantly, they know the work you've been involved with SEI, but some of us may not know, like, what was your background like being here prior to working at SEI? Like, just grow up here? What high school did you go into? Could you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, there's hopefully more of us here than people realize, meaning homegrown folks that actually was born and raised here in Portland. Oftentimes when I'm out and about in the professional world, hard to run into folks that was actually born and raised here. But born and raised here, went to Beach Elementary, Jefferson High School, Mount Hood Community College, to talk about here. But, when I was growing up, I'm, again, 71. So civil rights movement is alive and well. So you're looking at, the 60s and early 70s, a lot going on. Some of the inequalities that we talk about today, some of the police brutality that we see today. I mean, just think about, 30 years ago, it was far worse, so we lived that every day. We lived that, going to school, even though I was at Jefferson, playing ball there. I could tell you that when we was playing ball, we had to always play not only against the team but against the referees because they was cheating every game, and it was overt, and they wasn't hiding it at all. So you learn how to deal with that. So we came up with a yell my senior year, 1, 2, 3 crush, because we knew that the game could not be close, because if it was, they were going to take it. So we averaged beating people by 20, 30 points. In my senior year, we won the state championship. So the journey of that and winning that at a time in 1972 where Black folks didn't have a whole lot to be happy about. So as we won that state championship for the Portland area for Black folks, I mean, that was huge. I mean, we were like, local heroes, local stars. I mean, we would walk down the streets in and around Unthank Park, and folks would come out on their porch and clap as we walked down the street because it was that meaningful. The game itself at the Coliseum had the largest number of folks to ever see a game before and after. And it was Black folks versus white folks. That became the reality. We were playing against Baker for the championship from Baker, Oregon, with crew cuts, all white against this all Black team. So a lot of meaningful stuff happened around that, but it also taught me how to give back and how to think about community in the midst of my successes. How do you then turn that into community pride? So it was wasn't by happenstance that I ended up doing what I do as a career, because that started way back then. I was doing programs when I was in middle school. I did programs throughout high school, ran Jefferson's Gym, did programs at Peninsula Park. Me and Ray Leary did programs at Boyce early on, which was our first one. So that was all a part of my DNA. So I would just say that for a lot of folks, they spend a lifetime trying to figure out what it is they're supposed to do in life. God blessed me with giving me that information when I was very, very young. Didn't know that it was going to turn out the way that it did or the specifics, but I knew that it was going to be about giving back to my community in one form or another.
This is definitely not on the question board, but I'm just curious. You talked about the cohesion, knowing your gift early. What are y'all saying in the midst of that game? Like, how are you staying together in that intense atmosphere?
You mean when we were balling?
Yeah.
Oh man, we didn't in my junior year. There was we were one of the best teams in the state that year. This is the year that I think Benson won it with Richard Washington, who should have been at Jefferson High School. But in our junior year, we ended up losing in the playoffs. But it was after we had an all-out riot at Benson High School. Where we ended up staying down in the locker room for an hour and a half. Police everywhere. They pulling kids out of the gym, bringing them downstairs. They got cake cutter holes in their head. They bleeding. You remember back then we had the afro, so everybody had a cake cutter.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was that bad. But this was Jeff versus Benson. But what they decided to do, again, very racist. They changed our game so that we could no longer play any of our games in the evening. All of our games was moved to 3:45, so our fans could not show up for the games. Now, they did that to Jefferson. They didn't do that to Benson. As if Jefferson could have only fought themselves. We was fighting Benson and Benson was fighting back. Now, how do you determine we get crushed like that and they don't? So we ended up losing to Marshall in the playoffs, a team that we had beat by 40 points earlier that year. So we didn't make it on to state. But we learned the lessons of, that's what I meant by what I said earlier, 1, 2, 3 crush. The games can't be close and you got to stay strong because they're coming after you. There's no way they want to let this all Black team be the best team in the state. So through that, staying together was no longer hard because we had a common goal. And it wasn't just about winning a championship. It was about representing all the Black Portland, but realistically, given the things that were going on around us, you represent all Black America at that point, and that's what you're carrying. So it was a huge weight, but it pushed us, it fueled us to give more than we had ever given before to make sure that we walked away with that championship. So the cohesion, the connectivity was a natural thing because of the importance of it.
Yeah, and I could relate to that even myself. So I played basketball. I went to high school at De La Salle. My junior year, we had a playoff game at Class 9. As soon as we come out the tunnel, all we hear is "Coon."
Yeah.
And they were throwing popcorn, Gatorade at us. And, you know, you would think in 2012, or some people rather would think in 2012, stuff would be a little different. But America is still what it is, unfortunately, in some pockets of the world.
Yeah. So, and that's 2012. So imagine every
72,
game in 72. We in South Salem, shoot, they ain't saying coon, they saying nigga, straight up. You know, we ride into Astoria, shoot, they got a dummy painted black with a rope hanging around his neck, hanging from the pole. That's as you ride into Astoria. So we had a lot of that, man. So you just, you know, it's just a part of it. So hopefully it makes you stronger.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, for sure. It definitely does. Like we had a saying on a team anyways, 12 deep, just because a lot of our games, they aren't just always in the metro area. Yeah. We have to go to these outskirt cities, but that game for sure, we felt it.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have already kind of spoken to, you know, your resilience and strength as a man in terms of your leadership in the community. So I want to ask, you know, after you graduated at Jefferson and, you know, you did your collegiate studies, what prompted you to want to start Self-Enhancement Inc?
Well, I majored in psychology and sociology, and I did that on purpose because, you know, that's the study of individuals, study of groups, study of the mind, all of that. But again, as I talked about earlier, I was already headed in a direction of wanting to give back and do something for community. So I always felt like education was going to be it. So I also have teaching certification. So my first jobs was not SEI. They were in the district. I worked for Portland Public Schools for 10 years. Back in the day, we had this job. God, to see if I can actually remember. Well, we were Title VII coordinators. And at that time, as Black students were being pushed out of Albina and forced to go to other schools, there were some of us that had jobs in some of those schools to work with Black students that were pushed to those schools. So I ended up at Lincoln High School. So I worked at Lincoln for 4 or 5 years as the Title VII coordinator. My job was to work with the 40, 50 Black students that were at Lincoln to make sure that they can transition and that they were being treated fairly, correctly, all of that. And also at the time was the varsity girls head basketball coach. So that job, and then later on, I created this program called the Achievement Athletic Motivation Program within the district, which was really similar to SEI, but it was centered all around sports, where I had the opportunity to go around to 4 or 5 different high schools and just talk to athletes about how to respect and look at the skills you learn through sports and transfer those back into the classroom or to career fields. So in that job, I had Jefferson, I had Roosevelt, I had Benson, and I had Grant. So I rotated through those 4 places, and I had developed my own job that the district and the then superintendent, who was a Black superintendent, Matthew Prophet, allowed me to do that job. But all of it was preparation for SEI and the camps, because when I did the camps for the first time, I just pulled from all of that information that I had already been putting together.
And then just to double down on that some. So as stuff is starting to come into fruition with SEI forming, who are some of the people within your life, either it be personal relationships or think partners, that helped lay the foundation for what it eventually became?
I think, growing up, I saw a lot of stuff in terms of preparing for the camps. Perry Sport Camp was a camp we went to. I was in Jack Ramsey's camps, who was running the Portland Trailblazers. Maurice Lucas did a camp, and we were involved in all of his camps. So from that, I was always in my own mind trying to develop, okay, so what would a real camp look like? Because I'm reading about all these guys that's chasing the NBA dream and they not making it. And, they're back home on the streets doing all of the wrong things. So I started thinking about, so how do you transfer these skills that you learned in sports back into the classroom? So, first camps, me and Ray Leary was close, and a lot of the other guys that I grew up with and that were ballers. So the first camps, all of them were involved. And me and Ray kind of ran the initial camps to get them off the ground, and just begin to believe that this was one avenue for kids to understand life after sports, because just about everybody on the planet, eventually you can't shoot the jumper no more. I don't know about LeBron, he might prove us wrong, but most of us, we moved from that at a fairly early age. So then what? So the camps were designed specifically to do that, number one. And number two, we started dealing with some of the traveling teams, because believe it or not, we talking basketball, but in the 70s and early 80s, white folks were controlling what was called BCI then, Basketball Congress International. It wasn't the AAU. Nope. And black kids couldn't even get on the teams. The white coaches had the money and they was driving all that. So they come to the neighborhood and get two of the best black kids and put on their team with all their white kids, and they rolling around the country.
It's so funny you said that. I was just with Terrell Brandon 2 days ago. He was just telling me, like, even his senior year, it was just him and Tyrone White Sr. Yeah. That was it. And it was maybe two. Yeah. If you real lucky, 3, but that's about it.
That's about it. That's about it. So we decided that, man, enough of that. So we started putting together our own teams and traveled to a few places just so, our black students could get access to that same kind of thing. So there was, a lot of folks that got involved early on with the camps, but most of them were ballers that we would bring back to coach the kids. And then the camps were free. We got connected to Nike, which was big, because in 81 in our first camp, Nike was our first corporate sponsor. So they gave us all the sneakers, white canvas shoes, wasn't the best, but they was free, so all the kids would come to the camp and everybody knew that they was going to get a free pair of Nikes. They was going to get an SEI shirt and we was going to ball. And the camps were huge. It was a huge success. Everybody wanted to be in the camp, be at the camp. Back then, we always had the best in the community would come, but then there'd be a lot of other players that, just want to be there. And we have the whole classroom situation that we had going, and, we gave out awards. And we still doing that today. And that's kind of the foundation of our SEI world is out of the sports world, and my journey through sports and what I learned in that journey. And the key to me is it is a journey. It ain't a destination, and everybody's trying to end up somewhere, trying to, complete life by doing X, Y, Z. But life is about that everyday thing in the journey. And if you can stop long enough and respect the journey, that's when you really live in life. But I picked up on that, and I brought all of that to the table as I moved to grow SEI from a camp into what it has become.
Man, you taking me back to some of my early childhood memories. Like even, I think the first basketball camp I went to was maybe like 5th grade, because I went 5th through my junior year. I won Mr. Hustle. I feel like I got robbed from Mr. SEI one year, but that's neither here nor there.
You're not the only one that feels that way. I could tell you some Damon Stoudemire stories who felt that same way.
No, for sure. But y'all created a great model in terms of merging two worlds. And like a great man told me once when I was younger, sports without education is a long shot.
Yeah. That's what we were. Our first 2 years, that was on the shirt. Yeah, that was on the shirt. Yeah. Yeah. Sports without education is a long shot. So let's get them both in. And, realistically, we have some great examples of that have come out of SEI. Think about Orlando Williams, and what he's doing today and how he parlayed sports. Ime Udoka is an SEI kid, and Nico Harrison is an SEI kid,
Really?
Yeah. And these are guys that understood that sports may be where you start, but you can take that and turn it into to a career, and it don't have to be on the court.
No.
You know,
So like shifting from week-long programs to like doing things year round, what was what was it to switch from that to year-round programs? Like, what was the making for that?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, a lot of things happen out of tragedy. And in Black America, it often, our growth and new things happen out of our own circumstance and the tragedy that we're surrounded by. What happened and moved camps to year round was the first drive-by shooting. And Ray Winston, who was an SEI, was in our SEI camp the same summer that he got shot. And two of the guys in the car that did the shooting was in the same camp. And these guys balled together, didn't have no beef together. It's just one group is a part of the Deacon Bloods, and Ray was a part of not the Kirby Street, but the Columbia Villa Crips. Yeah. And just on the court balling. 2 weeks before he got shot, we at that point had started a program out in Columbia Villa. We did like a 4-week program out there that wasn't about basketball. That was the first attempt to move it from sports to do something a little bit longer. And I remember talking to Ray Winston about stepping out of the gang and coming to work with us. And he said no, but he said no, not because he didn't want to do it. He said no out of respect, because he knew that he couldn't not be in the gang out there where he lived, and the fact that his family needed resources that he could make happen by what he was affiliated. And, you know, your boys that shot him, they tripping, man. They drinking Old English 800, smoking weed in the car, and let's ride out here. They ride by the court and just fire weapons. Now, come on. Now, it just must have been Ray's time, because they wasn't that close. And they don't shoot that well, but they end up shooting him in the head. And that's the first drive-by shooting. So from that point, and we had already been telling the city, look, we got a gang problem. I-5 is hot. And they coming all the way from Compton to Portland, straight up I-5. And they weren't listening. So once that happened, then, you know, the whole city is up in arms. Like, we got a gang problem. What we're going to do about this? Oh, so now you want to talk about it. So we ended up getting some resources to move from a 1 week or the week-long camps to a full year-round effort. Ray Leary was involved with that at that point. He was working at the Urban League. Gerald Deloney was working for the city. He was involved with that. So between the three of us, we got together and pulled the resources together. And then I also, I was working for Portland Public Schools, so I was able to bring resources, my full salary from Portland Public into our own program. So at that point, it was time to do this full time. So we had to create a full business model and an entity that we could actually do the full programming out of. So me and Ray did that, and then there were some others that did that. Gerald came later, but that's the impetus was a drive-by shooting, and the city finally realizing that we need to do something about this, and we gave them at least. I won't say it was the solution, because we still got that same problem today, but we gave them an avenue that they could pursue and put some money behind to help kids at least have more options.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. You touched on that, because my parents have told me about that story at least since I was 5, 6 years old. Yeah. And I never knew that was so pivotal in terms of SEI's foundation. Yeah. But you know, we've kind of touched on it here and there. But could you go deeper? Because I know SEI is nearing its 50th anniversary since its inception. Yeah. For those who, you know, ain't from Northeast, ain't from the North, and may have just came to Portland last year as a transplant, can you speak to some of the programming and stuff that SEI has been able to do beyond just after-school programming?
Well, I think we consider ourselves a youth development program. That's where we started. So you are talking about after school programming, but you're talking about in-school programming, and you're talking about providing wraparound service for an entire family. You know, I tell folks, you show me an at-risk kid, I say, follow that kid home, I'll show you some at-risk adults. We got an adult problem in America, not a youth problem in America. So our model was very different in that we were willing to go into the schools and be there all day and do it from a case management standpoint, to where I got a caseload of kids. It's my job to make sure that everybody on my caseload make it. And then we had parent coordinators who followed kids home to find out what was happening in the houses. And you got abuse, you got drug and alcohol issues, you got unemployment, you got healthcare issues, all of those issues that folks don't know what to do with. So we step in and provide those services. And once we moved beyond just dealing with the youth from a resource standpoint and started our community and family services department, then we started getting social service dollars to really be able to support families as a whole. So when you think about SEI, what I would say is you think about everything that any of us would want to do for our own child and may not be in position to do it based on money. Our job in SEI is to find enough money that we can do everything that a kid and a family needs to be successful, and provide them with every option and opportunity so that they can find their gift. I tell folks, man, every human being has a gift. And I guarantee you that there's a lot of adults that are adults now working a job that is not their gift, but they need to get paid. So they're doing what they do to get paid. But if they could find their gift at an early age and then find a way to get paid for it, that would be heaven. Our job is to provide options and opportunities for all kids so that they hopefully can find their gift. I say this way too often. My wife always laughs at me, but I say on a clear day, you can stand at SEI and see Mount Hood. But I guarantee you, most black kids in Portland ain't never set foot on Mount Hood. But if you provide them with that option, we may have the next extreme skier that's black, that's in our program. If we get him on the mountain, they may fall in love with that. That's just one example, but there's literally thousands of examples of what a kid could be if they get introduced to it. One of the fellas I grew up with, Greg Brown, coined the phrase "life has options." We was just, in a conversation, he was talking to the kids, and that just kind of popped up. But we've held on to that life does have options, but those options aren't presented to all kids. But through SEI, they will be. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. But we do, all kind of programming. Taking kids on trips, getting kids jobs, and, all of the support services, but then trying to go beyond that to make sure that they have access to a broader life.
It's just so interesting to hear all of that, because the line that you said that really resonated with me was, helping the kids, you have to help the at-risk adults. And I think that's so important. And I would say for me, when I was in college, I wanted to be a child psychologist, and I actually switched from that to couples counseling, because I was like, if I can help the relationship, or I can help the family, I can help the kids. And it's so interesting. And I was curious, what age were you when you put that piece together? Because I was almost out the door, and I was like, man, I don't think I can really help the kids like I really want to, because they're going to go back into a toxic environment. And it's just kind of just from that thought, so many expansive ways has created SEI.
Yeah. But you got to be on the ground. And I think the other thing about SEI, we was always on the ground. We was always connected to everything that was going on the ground. And if you're on the ground, you recognize when you're dealing with this young person, you've also heard what they're going home to. It ain't no secret to you. So if you know that, then you understand quickly that you got to figure out how to work with that too. So, another saying in SEI is you put your last name on every kid. So everything that you would do for your own child, everybody on your caseload got to get that same love. So, we got so good at that oftentimes the kids, when they get in trouble, would call their coordinator at 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning. I got this problem, I got that problem. So, when we train our folks, we train them how to be a mentor, how to be a teacher, and how to be a parent. But you can't start out in parent mode. Kid ain't ready for that. You don't have that kind of trust. But you can, anybody can mentor, and then you start teaching. Hopefully you move from mentor, you start building a relationship, and then the teaching role, they start listening to you because now you have a relationship, and eventually you get to a point where you can chastise them and hold them accountable because there's that much trust and much love, and they trust the fact that when you chastise them at that point, you're doing it out of love. You're not doing it to punish them. So once they learn all of that, then it's their job to get out there and put that work in. But Portland is very small. I mean, we all know that. We see each other everywhere. So when you're in those roles, and one of the biggest challenges, we get negativity about this all the time because people that work at SEI, they human like everybody else. I remember early in the program, I was in Safeway right there on MLK, and I was buying, I don't know whether it wasn't a beer because I don't even drink beer. It must have been a bottle of wine, and some of the kids were there. And they said, "Oh, Mr. Hopson got some wine." That was the last time I bought alcohol in the community. That was the last time. Because I'm old enough to have alcohol, and maybe I could just say, well, I'm grown. But what we know is that kids learn not based on what you say. They learn based on what they see. So if they're admiring me and see Mr. Hopson drinking, guess what? They want to drink. So I'm not going to put that in front of them. So, it's things like that. And the other people that work in SEI, those kind of issues come up all the time because they'll say, well, I knew you when. So how you going to step into this role now and represent all of that? But somehow you got to separate that because all of us are human. I mean, all of us got stuff in our past that we wish we could get back or that we wouldn't have done. But that doesn't mean that what I'm saying right now isn't correct and that you shouldn't be listening to it.
I just got one more question for you before we go to a commercial break. Just because you were speaking about, just awareness in terms of like how you're perceived in the community.
Yeah.
Being a Black man in leadership position you have been throughout these years in Portland, we ain't gotta, lie about it all. The percentage is it's probably only about 4 to 5% of us as far as population in the city. Did you feel any internal pressure as far as, when you walk out the door feeling like, all right, I got to be perfect. I can't act out a certain way. I have to articulate myself better than Barack Obama and, this, that, and third.
Yeah, I think there's in Portland there's always that piece because there's not enough of us and we're not connected enough, those of us who are in it, to be supportive of one another. So certainly the bigger you get, the more pressure you're under. When we were just running camps, I didn't feel as much of that because we got that under control. We talking about we got that. But once we moved to a full year-round program and we started growing and we had identified individuals to come help us, now I got a board that can actually fire me from something that I created. And they're coming from the political world. They're coming from the business world. All of a sudden you start to feel like not only do I not want to mess this up for my community, but these people now that have given or invested in me and invested in the work that we're doing. And we had a lot of them. SEI has done some things that had never been done before. We ended up with folks on our team, and for a while, SEI was the it program for the city, not amongst Black folks, but for white folks too. We did events where we had like a 4 or 5 year run where we averaged $2.5 million in our event. One night we raised $4 million in one night. That ain't never been done before. We have folks on our team that's dropped over 10 years, 15 million, 10 million here, 5 million there. And these are all white folks. And most of them was probably Republicans, but believing in what it was we were doing, because we wasn't necessarily asking for a handout. We're saying, give us the resources. We know how to take care of our own people and they will be successful. And the outcomes spoke for themselves. We were graduating 98% of all of our kids and was sending 80% to college. Everybody in the country wanted that for Black kids. Every community in the country wanted that, but we've been doing that for 30 years. So yeah, pressure was alive and well daily, to keep that going and to represent it in a way and not make the mistakes that would make it all go away. Because if that happens, then there's literally thousands of kids and families that don't get the service.
commercial break.
Man, yeah, I'm gonna have to get hydrated. I'm learning. Like, I'll be honest, before I'm going to commercial break, it's mad interesting because I'm not an SEI kid. So like hearing this and like, because I was in Upper Bound, so I was like, so like also hearing the outside like noise, so it's like interesting, like getting the history. But I know I'm enjoying it, so this is a great time to get some snacks, get hydrated. We got a quick commercial break.
Be right back, y'all.
Do you have an event coming up? A project that'd be elevated by crisp visuals and clear audio? Look no further than the Backseat Critic Productions. Our email is bc.productions.pdx@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram at bc.productions.pdx.
Back, y'all. It's been a riveting conversation, so I just want to jump right back into it. So, we've been talking about your professional background and, the history and journey of SCI. For our viewers who don't live in Portland, can you speak to some of the unique challenges that Black kids face living in a predominantly white city?
I think about that often, but I've traveled enough to recognize that I don't know. This is not going to go over well when people hear, but I don't think it's vastly different. The issues are the same, whether it's a smaller number of you versus the larger numbers. I think what changes is that one would think that Black kids that live in places where there's a lot more Black people, they have direct access and they can see themselves more often. Sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. I spent a lot of time in Atlanta shooting. You can't find a town that got more Black folks almost than Atlanta. They're everywhere. but the kids, we've run programs in Atlanta, and many of the kids, the poor kids that live in certain areas, got the exact same issues as the poor kids here. So there certainly is some uniqueness in the fact that there's so few of us that it's much harder to see Black folks, see professional Black folks. And given the fact that albina is no longer albina, meaning it's no longer Black albina, that becomes a problem. So the kids that are now pushed out to outer east, you don't even have a community. So I think in most cities where Black folks are, at least, gentrification is happening just about in every major city, but it seems like in some places, Black folks have been pushed to other areas, but there's still somewhat of a Black community, where here you don't have that. But the major issues that we would talk about, around, education and jobs and healthcare and, family support, all of that, I don't think we're unique in Portland in terms of the challenges that we're faced with. I think you'll find that in every major city. We have a replication in Miami, in the Overtown community, and that started from a relationship with Alonzo Mourning, Hall of Fame NBA player. And I'm telling you, the kids there, just like the kids here, and the program there is just like our program here. I don't find that what we have to do there is different than what we had to do here. And like I say, we've run some camps in Atlanta. And what we found is that we were talking about earlier about folks not showing up. And when we do a camp in Atlanta on our last day, which is awards day, it'd be more families there, parents, than kids, which is unique there. And it's only because they don't have it there. They love it so much. Everybody talking about it, everybody trying to show up. So the kinds of things that we do in terms of the connectivity of the work, I think plays anywhere. But I can't say that I feel there's a whole lot of uniqueness with the issues that we're having in Portland. Those issues are just issues that Black people got in every major city in the country, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
Well, one of the things I kind of want to add, just from just like learning from you, I think it's kind of hard for you to take a back seat, rest, because you always moving forward. So I know in retirement, I know you're taking a step down, and the SEI ship is still going to be sailing. And I'm just curious, like, with you not at the helm as much, I'm just curious, what are you wanting for the future of SEI, even though that you're going to take a different seat?
I think the timing for my step down is appropriate. The world is changing. as it relates to the resource side of it, is changing. A lot of the money, and I talked a little bit earlier about the money that SEI got over the years from the private side.
Yeah.
Those individuals have changed. It's a lot of younger folks, technology folks who do business differently. So I'm not the one for that. And technology itself is the future. I'm not a technology guy. I'm old school, so I can't lead people in that realm if that becomes the way that a lot of the work is going to be dealt with and the way in which you're going to deal with people. SEI was developed around the relationship model. And all of a sudden, personal relationships are becoming less and less because people are doing business through technology. So for me, stepping down, the timing is right. Now, SEI moving forward, we want to stay relevant. Our new CEO, Trent Aldridge, is a technology guy. He's well versed in that. So for him, this will come easy for him around the technology world. But Trent also has a healthy respect for the past, because you can't get rid of all that we have been and all that we are and the relationship side of it. You got to figure out how to merge the two, because I think, as I talked about earlier, we're unique in our ability to wrap services around children and families and represent something from a community standpoint. Now you got to figure out, how do you maintain that and use technology to get to even more individuals? So my hope for SEI is that will become a reality, number one. Number two, I hope that we'll be able to touch more lives. I have this thought in my mind that I keep thinking about, given our successful graduation rate, which again, 97, 98% of the kids graduate. What if that was a graduation rate for all Black kids in the state of Oregon? That would be the best in the nation. Now, the good news about Portland and the state of Oregon is that we probably only have a little over 70,000 Black folks in the entire state. That's the good news, and that's also the bad news. A lot of folks want more. I feel like that's a number that's doable. We could get our arms around 70,000 Black folks in the state of Oregon. You ain't talking about Chicago. You're not talking about New York. You're not talking about LA, where there's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions or something.
Yeah.
We're talking about 70,000 folks, y'all. And we already touched 17,000 already. So I believe that the future for SEI is to be able to, one, service more individuals ourselves, and two, train other entities that service Black kids how to get the same success that we do.
Just pivoting a little bit, so talking about the future here, could you tell us a little bit about the 1803 fund, and then also how that will impact the SEI community network, as well as just the Black community at large in Portland?
So let me just start by making sure, because I always start this way on the 1803 fund, because I don't want us to mess up history. So from a historical standpoint, myself and Ronnie Herndon have had a long-term relationship with Phil Knight. After the George Floyd issue, I got a call from Phil Knight after trying to get back to Phil Knight for 15 years in a conversation. Couldn't get the meeting. He had already given us $5 million, by the way, prior to that. But after the George Floyd issue happened, Phil Knight called me because he wanted us to know about what Nike was getting ready to do, because Nike was going to drop like $140 million, $40 million from Nike, $100 million from God, how can I just forget his name? Michael Jordan. So I can forget that name.
Kind of good basketball.
So, and he wanted to introduce me to John Donahoe, who was the new CEO. So, I'm a little giddy at this point. I've been trying to get back to Phil for 15 years, and I answer my phone as Phil Knight. So in that conversation about learning about that, I made the ask to Phil to say, would you and Penny, his wife, consider doing something more than what Nike is doing? Because Phil could do this individually. And he said, send me something. So I made the ask of Phil Knight for $500 million. He said, bring me something. I called Ronnie Herndon, who also had a relationship with Phil Knight. And then I called Rakiah Adams, who is an SEI kid who has the history of handling hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars. Because I felt like, Phil, for us to get money like that, somebody needs to be involved who knows how to handle money on that level. So I called Rakiah. So over 3 years after that ask, he dropped the money and we developed 1803. Now, I'll be honest, 1803 is going to do great work. They're going to give out a lot of money, but it wasn't my concept or Ronnie's concept to do it the way in which it's being done. That's the CEO's concept. That's Rakiah. And, she's the CEO, so she gets to do it the way that she wants to do it. I felt like when you get that kind of money, we didn't end up with $500 million. We ended up with $400 million. I wanted to be able to doing something that was straight up transformational, go all in on an issue or two. And make the difference, not a difference, make the difference. The way that it's being handled, I think it'll ultimately end up being more like a foundation that gives out money. There's several entities that's gotten money already. To me, that's not game changing. That might help sustain some people and, we'll be able to say, well, that made a difference there, made a difference there. But then when you look at the data at the end, ain't nothing going to change. So I would have done it differently, but I appreciate her leadership and the way she's chosen to do it. And hopefully she can keep raising money and making money over time. So at least those resources will continue to be there. Now, we're hoping that on the education side that we'll have a little bit more say over what that piece does eventually do. And the concept that I just talked about earlier, having the highest graduation rate in the nation for Black students in Oregon would be, to me, that would be making the difference. That's a kind of a transformational thing that I would say we would hope eventually we could do something like that out of the resources of 1803.
Or maybe I've misheard you. Investing in the graduation rate, would that be the only game changing? Because you talked about sustainability, and I think sustainability is like super important. Like, what differences would you have wanted rather than just giving out? Like, what would have been the most sustainable thing for us as we move forward?
Well, to me, I'm going to always believe that education is the key for our kids in one form or another. I mean, at least getting them to graduate from high school.
Yeah.
And then after high school, either college or workforce development, something.
Trade.
Trade. And I feel like if we looked at all of the Black kids in Portland Metro, because that number, comes down, I think it would be transformational just to what we do in SCI. We talk about creating positive contributing citizens. So that would be the first part. The second part that I think would be transformational, because I would say 70 to 80% of the Black kids that we deal with going home to a single female head of household. So you would pump resources into that mother to make sure that she could handle her world, so that, as we talked about earlier, at-risk kids going home to at-risk adult, we need to make sure that she ain't at risk or she's less at risk, so that she can provide a support system for her son or daughter. If you do that and we do education, I guarantee you over 20 years from now, our community would be different. It would be different. And that to me is transformational. But you have to pump it all in that. You can't do 10 things. See, and we got 25 problems and we're trying to solve all 25. And that's not the way you get it done. You solve them one at a time. You go all in until we solve that one. Then you go all in on the next one and you solve that one. But if you just doling out to a little bit to everybody, that's how all of us have been getting money for SCI for 43 years. That's how we've been getting money. And it's never enough to make the problem go away.
I appreciate you expanding upon that, because I kind of like felt that. Now, I also want to pivot just a little bit too, because during this entire time you've been oozing this. So you've been oozing activism. And one of the things that we're kind of having to deal with this current administration and education is definitely being nailed to the cross when it comes to how that's going to affect, Black youth, Black programs. And I'm just curious, is there anything that we can do to weather the storm during this current administration?
Man, I don't know. I certainly don't have an answer for that one. I just believe that you just gotta kind of buckle up and go. You know, in some places you need to take cover, but in other places you just need to be bold and be bright and shine anyway, in spite of. I mean, because it's not the first time, and it's not going to be the last time that, you know, they try to put some shade on your light. But if you allow that and you see this as doomsday, then it will be. But you got to look at it and see beyond it, because the sun always comes back out. Man, light always beats darkness. I mean, I just feel that. So for me, spiritually speaking, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I know what it is, but I know it can't win in the end. And we've been in such dire straits as Black people in America before this. I mean, this ain't even the worst. I mean, if our ancestors gave up based on the kind of stuff that's happening now, man, we wouldn't even be here. So it's just our turn to go through it. It's this generation's turn to go through it, and we just got to weather the storm. Because I don't know that there's any secrets to that. You know, there ain't nothing that we can run out and do unless we're going to finally get to a point to where we can collectively come together around something. And, you know, that happens occasionally, but it just doesn't happen on the level that I think it could. You know, there's a concept, and I don't know how much time we got, fellas, or whether this even fits, but I share this concept because I've been on this concept for 15, 20 years, and I've just never been able to do it because I've been doing SEI. But I've always felt like with the kind of leadership that we have in Black America and the kind of resources we have, and I thought about this especially when Barack was sitting in the seat, but let's just say there's 40 million African Americans in this country. If Barack had said while he was president, I'm on every African American to send $5 in a month, just $5 a month. So that's $5 a month times 40 million. So at 40 million, they're going to do it. Let's just say half of people did, 20 million. So that's 5 times 20 million every month in behalf of Black America. So if you have the right person asking, who don't want to go down with that? Who don't want to put up with that? And even the poorest of the poorest can come up with $5 a month. Now, there's a whole bunch of folks that can spend a whole lot more money. Mm-hmm. But if you had Black leadership that could pull enough folks together, now what's the first thing going to be saying? Well, where that money going to go? So who's getting paid out of that? So, okay, so Tyler, Oprah, y'all cover all the expenses of everybody that's going to work in this. So we can say that all of this money is going to go to exactly what we say it's going to go to, because y'all got enough money to hire all the people. Michael Jordan, y'all handle that. Okay. So now where the money going to go? HBCUs are dying on the vine.
Yeah, they are.
So every month you could give hundreds of millions of dollars to a HBCU for scholarships and for new buildings because they dying on the vine. And everybody, who couldn't vote for that in Black America? Because that's us. Yeah. That's us. And to me, that is easy. That's an easy ask.
No, it really is. And, you know, this ain't even a question, but I can't tell you how much it frustrates me when I see some of our entertainers. Don't get me wrong. I have some students there, like whether it be USC, Michigan, or Syracuse. These schools have huge endowments. There are kids that go to Howard, Norfolk State, Hampton, that because of, you know, housing issues or just lack of funding, are having to do their freshman year in a tent outside.
Yeah. I hear you. So that's one. So either HBCUs, or me and Alonzo have had this concept for a long time. Mm-hmm. Think about the Jewish community centers. Mm-hmm. Every major city in the country got one. Mm-hmm. So what rivals that in Black America? Don't have one. It's the Salvation Army. It's the YMCA. I mean, some might have one like a SEI, but why wouldn't we, or couldn't we, with that kind of money, put up one of them that secures our Black culture in every major city, just like it does for Jewish people? And I love the Jewish Community Center because it's about Jewish people, but everybody welcome. Everybody welcome. You can go in there, they'll treat you wonderfully. But you'll walk out there knowing this is the Jewish Community Center, and we need something similar. So you can use the money for that and put up one of them year after year in every major city. There's a lot of things that I think we could say and do that would be beneficial to Black people that we could get our arms around if we would.
That's a fact. Well, we have our last commercial break before we have our last ending block. And we'll be right back. We are back. Oh, man. You know, I've been dying to ask this so much. I have had the luxury of being able to come into your home. And every time I come into your home, I am hit with a picture. And every time I want to ask, but I just don't. What was it like meeting President Barack Obama?
Oh man, it was special. I met Barack twice. Once here in Portland when he was running. I can't even remember the first time or something.
Yeah,
they always have these dinners, these fundraisers. So you can go through one door and pay $1,000, and he'll be in the room for a few minutes. You say hi, and boom. Then there's other ones where it costs like 10 grand. Or more, and you go in that room and you get to shake his hand. So I talked about Alonzo Mourning earlier, but Zoe was a big fundraiser for Barack in Miami. So my mother, on her, I can't remember, must have been her 85th birthday or something. I asked, Mom, what you want for your birthday? She said, I want to meet Barack Obama. And I laughed. I said, Mom, you want to meet Barack? I said, yeah, he already been here. If he was coming back here, I know enough people, I probably could make that happen, but he not coming here. She said, you asked me what I wanted. I want to meet Barack Obama. So I called Zoe and said, Zoe, I know, is Barack coming that way? He said, yeah. I said, my mom wants to meet Barack. He said, if you can get her here, we'll make it happen. So put my mom on the plane at 85, flew all the way to Miami. And it was amazing. I mean, it was one of the most special moments in my life, not for me, but for her, because this is a woman that grew up in Mississippi, in segregated Mississippi. And she has the opportunity to see the first Black president in the United States of America. And my mom, she couldn't walk well, so she got the walker, and we're in the Fontainebleau. And where we go in at and where he's at, it must be a mile. I mean, if you've ever been to the Fontainebleau, this place is huge. So she's on this walker and she's on it. And we get into the room. He don't come in right away. And we sit there. It must be for another hour before he ever comes in. But based on my relationship with Zoe, we didn't have to pay anything. He just made it all happen. And we got a chance to get in there where she actually had the opportunity to walk up to him and shake his hand. And actually, in her case, she kissed him on the cheek, which is really not appropriate. You're not supposed to do that. but she kissed him on the cheek. But she considered him her boyfriend from that point on. Wow. So we got a chance to take the pictures and all of that. So that picture you see in my house, she has one too. She has one too of her and Barack. So it was really special for her, given her age and what she grew up in. For me, it's Barack. And I've been around a few presidents. I've been around a lot of celebrities. So I don't get off on it that much. I mean, because I also met, I just forgot, but I met Barack a third time. I was in Palm Springs down there with some of my donors, and he was in the Thunderbird working out. And this was one of the most amazing things to me because I'm with my people. Yeah. So I'm just in there. I mean, I walked right in the workout room and could walk right up to him. I'm like, man, ain't nobody checked me. I could have a gun. I could have anything. And this is the president of the United States. So I know there had to be Secret Service people everywhere that I don't know, but I had access at him right there. So I hollered at him there and mentioned Alonzo, because Alonzo had actually met with him, went to dinner with him and his wife and all of that. So I had like a 15-second conversation with him and kept it moving. But pretty amazing stuff,
See, that's one thing I can always respect about you. You've always act like you've been there and nobody is too up here. Like, I appreciate that. It's just,
man, they all, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm like that, I've been around a lot of wealthy people, and I'm telling you, they got the same problems we got. Money don't make problems go away. Now, you can buy your way out of some stuff, but health stuff and family stuff, man, I could tell you horror stories about people with money and their what's going on in their lives and what they can and cannot do, based on circumstances and stuff. Man, everybody's human, man. Everybody's human, man. And believe me, everybody got issues.
Sure.
Everybody. I don't care how much money you got. Everybody got issues, man. Like, that's how life is. The only thing that changes is your ability to deal with the issues, because the issues are coming. Only thing that changes as you mature in life, you learn how to deal with them better. That's the trick in the game, is how well can you handle it, because they coming. They coming.
No. You want me to ask mine now?
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. One of my final questions is, I'm getting up there.
Yeah.
33 in the game.
No.
Shut up. Shut up. And you talked about this perfectly. You talked about modeling when you talked about your drinking. And one of the things I've always got to see from afar is the modeling of a marriage between a man and a woman. And for us young bulls, or us young cats, what kind of messaging would you give to us when it comes to the importance of marriage?
Well, a lot of people who know me and know my past would say I'm probably not the right one to ask that question of, because my present marriage is my fourth. Now, a lot of people, I don't advertise that, a lot of people don't know that, but we were talking earlier about, role modeling and getting it right. I messed it up 3 times just by trying to be right. Wanting to be married because I knew that the role that I was in, I needed to be married. I mean, I couldn't be out here running the streets and then talking to parents about what's right and trying to represent for kids. So each time I got married, the first 3 times, none of them were perfect, but spiritually speaking, I wanted to do the right thing from a God perspective, but also from a modeling perspective. And I got it right. I mean, I got it wrong 3 times in a row just by trying to push the envelope on being right. So I would say the key to this is trying to do it for all of the right reasons, and know whatever it is that you see in a mate, everything that you could ever have wanted in that mate need to be there from the gate, because you ain't changing nothing and they ain't changing. So if it ain't all there, and see, in my first 3, there was always something there that wasn't right. But I did it anyway, because you think that, well, shoot, from a spiritual perspective, it's going to be all right, or they'll change, I'll change, we'll just make it okay. No, you can't make it okay. But in my last marriage, there was nothing that I would have wanted to change about my present wife right from the gate. Everything that I could have hoped for was there. So, and if that's there as a foundation, man, ain't nothing but good coming from that, because it ain't gonna be no worse, because everything is there. So I would just say, make sure that you ain't trying to change nobody, and they ain't trying to change you, and whatever they're bringing to the table and you're bringing it to the table in that time that you saying I do is enough. If it don't get no better than that, that has to be enough.
Slight pivot in terms of like topic right now. Just one of my last questions to you. I'm a Northeast native, born and raised. Outside of the 4 years I lived in New Orleans for college, is where I'm from. I've been here. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna die here, but my spirit and my love and joy is always gonna be in NEP. So let me ask you this: you alluded to this earlier, as far as albino not being the same. With gentrification hitting our community so hard, how can we still stay connected, even though a lot of us, we might be in Vancouver, Beaverton, the North, Gresham, Troutdale, wherever have you? How can we still keep that sense of Black Portland, even if we're not all living on the same block or in a 5-minute radius from Jeff or anything like that?
Man, that's a tough question, because we're all trying to figure that out with gentrification. I don't know that we have enough of the place-based activities. Again, I'm not connected to the young folks. I know with my folks, it's going to be about church, or it's going to be about some type of group that you're involved with, where you see some other folks. My wife is involved with the links, maybe you got some sororities, some fraternities, things of that nature. But I think, one of the things that we don't have, and I keep thinking about this as I think about 1803. And when you think about what would make a difference, there's two things that we don't have here that most Black cities have that does add to that. One is a soul food restaurant, a good one, that we all just gonna go get some food and see other Black people up in there eating, and a Black club, a good Black club that professional Blacks will frequent on a regular basis. And in most cities, a lot of deals get started in the club where you just see somebody, oh man, what's up? What you doing? Are you doing that? Get your card. Let's hook up. We don't have that
Last time
here.
I was in Houston.
We don't have that here. And those are two simple things that seem like most people that thinking about it won't think about those things. But those are the simple things that if they were here, you run into people and you try to stay connected, or you find out about something else that's going to happen. It used to be, do you have a Black radio station? The way that the technology is now, I don't know what y'all using to get music, or whether you're getting information from those kind of channels, but we need some, because there's a lot of different Black things that happen in Portland, but they're not publicized well enough and people aren't connected to it in a good way. We just did our little Black event at SEI a couple weeks ago, had Howard's band in the gym, but it wasn't that many people there. And before that, the Blazers did it over at PCC. They had a few folks there, then they had a few folks at our place, and then they did it at the game. But if you Black in Portland, and we got Black businesses everywhere, and we got Howard's band, it seemed like you want to be at that, because you don't get that kind of opportunity. But getting that kind of information out more regularly so people can hear it and then come together, it's things like that I think would help the connectivity. But we are so spread out at this point. That's going to always be difficult because of where we live. So now it has to be place-based in such a way that you're willing to get in your car or get on the bus or do whatever you need to do to get to that spot for that moment.
It's so interesting that you say that. And just like super really quick, I know one of the things we've talked about here that that I don't want to say gentrification, but that siloing that happens with like things is like there's like a struggle to be the guy. Like, I'm the guy that connected this to this. Pay your homage, pay your respect. And I think that's what kind of gets into the way, where it's kind of like, no, if we're doing this together as a team, then it doesn't matter who does it. We all show up. And I think so many people are trying to fight to be we them types of Blacks, and where it gets that's my opinion.
I agree with that. When I was talking about Jewish folks in Jewish Community Center, one of the things we actually asked some Jewish folks about this. One of the things that happens in the Jewish community, they don't have to like each other in order to work together.
Yes.
They work together because it's for the good of their community. In Black America, that ain't happening.
Severely lacking.
That ain't happening. If I don't like you, I ain't working with you. I don't care what you doing that can benefit what I'm doing. I'm not going to work with you. We got to get over ourselves. And it can't be about us as individuals. For us really to move the needle some distance, it can't be about us. It has to be about the greater good of our community. And that has been lost to me in Black America. When early on in the civil rights movement, we was all on the same page because it was so obvious. You had to basically stay alive. Now you can kind of stay alive and stay on the sides and talk crazy and not want to be involved. And because Miss Susie over here did X, Y, Z, you ain't going to deal with her family. We get away with that, but it crushes us in terms of our ability to win.
Yep. Getting caught up in Northwest and Northeast debates and stuff. And
the funny thing about it is, because I know you're about to do shot clock. Yeah. What he's saying is like the realest thing. I will never forget this. I was working at the Jewish Middleman Community Center when I was in between college. Hey, look here, man.
Yeah.
So random.
I got story.
But that's the one. I've been there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
So get this really quick. I'm like, because I'm like a camp counselor lead, and like I'm hurting the kids, and I see these two gentlemen talking, and he's like, hey, blah blah blah, my wife's got a book that's coming out, and like he's like, yeah, my wife's books is trash, but I need you to get it, and he's like, I got you. And it was like, I was like, and like as like a young college, I was like, oh, okay, cool, but like, you know, learning more about the Jewish community, it's just like we just got to do it.
Got to support.
I will never forget that. He was like, yeah, that's not good, my man. But I need you to get this book.
Ready for shot clock? All right. So, Mr. Hopson, just closing out here with this episode. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
I do this thing I like to do with my guests where, you know, we just do some spitfire questions, just some rapid responses. So I'm just going to toss you one as an example. What's your favorite, between these two colors, what's your favorite color, red or blue?
Blue.
See? So you know how to play.
Well.
All right. So we get started whenever you're ready.
Yay.
Okay. So only because you mentioned him earlier today and you said you're working out with him, you and Barack Obama, y'all playing 1-on-1 to 11. Who wins that?
Oh, man, that ain't a contest, man. Barack pretend to be a baller. I was a baller.
All right. I'm not talking about NBA professionals because y'all probably got it in terms of that. Who has a better high school basketball program, Grant or Jeff?
Jeff.
Thank you.
Jeff, man. I mean, you know, I'm an alumni, man. I know all of the history, and a lot of it has to do with, shoot, if you was at Grant, you didn't go through what we went through. Mm-hmm. Sure, man. We had trials and tribulations, and then could still show up on the court and get it done, man. Yeah, good stuff.
If y'all hadn't broke ground at Unthink, what's another park in? I'm just going to assume that it's your decision. You know, we'll just say it's no barriers with this. If you hadn't broke ground at Unthink, what's another park you would consider?
Wow. You know, I was looking at some stuff earlier about the parks around, and, you know, the closest, you know, obviously would have been Irving, because there was a lot of black stuff that we did at Irving. Remember when the Cousins did their basketball league, and it was man, it was off the chain. It was great stuff. So I think Irving would be great, and sitting right there, surrounded on one side back in the day by black folks, and then you go to the other side, it was predominantly white. That would have been an interesting mix right there.
Okay. You mentioned a few different people that you've had come to SCI, whether it be Alonzo Mourning or some other folks. Just in terms of their interaction with the kids, who would you say was the most memorable with like public figures? You don't necessarily got to be an athlete.
You said interact with kids.
Yeah.
Okay, interacting with kids, I probably would say Coretta Scott King, because we had a whole session with her, and she did a great job with the kids. But when I think about the staff and the adults, I would say John Lewis. You know, Good Trouble. He did a great job, and we had a long conversation with him, and he was talking about Good Trouble even then. And I've never forgotten that. And I kind of see our whole SCI world creating Good Trouble.
Okay. Last one for you. I know they probably all like your kids, but what's your favorite of the SCI standards?
I would say probably standard number 6, because it's so universal. You know, we treasure our rich, in SCI, we treasure our rich culture and hold the cultures of all people in high regard. It's one of the things that I think we've missed in our SCI world. And that's why right now we're looking at creating this African American Cultural Center. I don't think we've talked enough about our history in SCI and the culture of black people in SCI. We try to prepare them to, you know, to handle their business, to stay in school, et cetera, et cetera. But then when you talk about treasuring your rich culture and holding the cultures of all people, you know, it means that, yeah, we want to respect everybody else at the same time. And I don't think there's a more important standard today than that one, given what we dealing with.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Wow, this has been an exhilarating episode.
Yeah.
No, for sure one of my favorites. Like, if not my favorite. I'm not just saying it because you hate it. It just...
No,
you know, stuff I like to be involved with, you know, it's just in my basket.
We were very professional.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad we did. I thought we were going to start quibbing, but, you know, we kept it together.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, fellas. You know, I'm trying to, you know, we need to share the love everywhere and on all levels. So I don't say no to much if I think that the reason why it's being done is correct. You know, if this was about y'all, I wouldn't be sitting here. But if you're trying to share a message to our people, then yeah, I'm trying to be down.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
I super appreciate that. And we'll just say thank you for your time, energy, and effort. And I hope you will enjoy some retirement.
Absolutely.
Maybe go fishing.
I'm finna go to the women's regional. I follow women's basketball.
Ooh.
See, it's everybody else is just now waking up. I've been on this for the last decade, man. I've been to every women's Final Four in the last 10 years. So we'll be in Birmingham to the regionals there, and then leave there and go to Tampa for the Final Four. I mean, the girls is putting in work right now.
Yeah,
they putting in work.
Notre Dame, they probably got my favorite college backcourt. It's been a while, maybe since like Duke in 2015 when we had Tyus Jones and Quinn Cook. Yeah, but Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo, they going crazy.
Yeah, they balling. They in a little trouble. They've been in a little funk here lately though. They're gonna need to get their mojo working again. But yeah, they can ball. They will be in Birmingham if they win the first two games. So they got to win the first two first. But,
for sure.
Yeah, they balling.
Well, we appreciate your time. We appreciate y'all, and we out.
Peace.